Discover 7 spine-chilling tales of the cursed and haunted secrets exposed for a terrifying night. Sarah stared at the television, the flickering screen illuminating her living room like an ominous beacon. 7 children have vanished without a trace. The anchor's voice crackled, each word dripping with dread. A sense of urgency blasted through her as she clutched the couch, heart racing. Families laughed under the glow of porch lights just outside her window, unknowingly playing in the shadows of an unseen predator. The tranquility of her suburban neighborhood shattered in that terrifying moment, reality racing into a nightmare. Days passed, enveloped in unease. Sarah felt the whispers sliding through the walls, ghostly murmurs that turned her home into a prison of paranoia. Each creak of the floorboards sent chills spiraling up her spine. She would glance into the twilight, seeing the shadows dance like specters in her carefully tended garden. The air around her grew thick with a damp chill that clung to her skin, igniting her instincts. How was it possible that laughter could be tinged with darkness, that the safety of their home was an illusion? One night, as the shadows deepened, her neighbor Mr. Jenkins, once a comforting presence, stood at her door. He was a retired police officer, his voice warm, but uncertainty flickered in her mind. "I'm here if you need anything, Sarah," he said, his smile stretching too far, almost maniacal beneath the porch light. Something weighed heavily behind those eyes of his. She felt the tension crackle in the air. "Have you been hearing the noises?" Sarah asked, every word laced with desperation. His response, carefully calculated, held back some darkness. "Just the wind. The houses settle at night." She wanted to believe him, but the fleeting glance he cast over his shoulder when he spoke sank deep into her gut. The folklore of a vengeful spirit, long whispered by the town's elders, twisted the warmth of their community into fear-laden threads. What if it wasn't just a tale? Before she could spiral further, something shifted in the neighborhood. Children began reporting shadowy figures lurking near the playground after dusk. An echoing chill spread through the parents, their conversations filled with murmurs of dread and suspicion at the cafe. Could families truly betray one another? Sarah knew she had to keep Lily and Max close but felt utterly helpless. When she tried to alert the authorities, they exchanged weary glances, honeyed words dripping with indifference, leaving Sarah feeling untethered as fear raced deeper into her mind. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." What began as mere anxiety morphed into relentless terror. Sarah felt the house suffocating her, the walls pulsating with hidden secrets. Every flicker of light outside was a potential threat, each muffled laugh from her children, now a ghostly reminder of what was at stake. She ventured deeper into the neighborhood's gossip, gathering whispers like breadcrumbs, her heart racing for the truth. Then, on a night draped in palpable tension, she felt it. A presence, lurking just beyond her sight, tethered to her every movement. She could no longer ignore it. The monster wasn't a spirit but someone far worse. Trust eroded among familiar faces, leaving her feeling more isolated than ever. As she steadied herself to confront Mr. Jenkins, resolve hardened and fear clawed at her insides. But he wasn't who he pretended to be. With an agonizing realization, Sarah recognized that in a town cloaked with familiarity, the most profound dangers might lie right next door. Just as dawn broke faintly on the horizon, an ominous figure cast a long shadow outside her window, whispering secrets that could unravel everything she believed in. The dawn crept slowly, bathing Sarah's quiet street in unnatural hues of grayish light. She didn't sleep that night, tension arching across her muscles like a live wire. Every sound, every shift of the house felt amplified, puncturing the stillness. She barely dared to breathe, her ears straining for the slightest hint of an intruder. Through bleary eyes, Sarah peered through the window, her heart skipping at the sight beyond. The figure was gone, but the shadows remained cloaked, watchful, patient. The reflection of her kids, still sound asleep, sparked a flicker of something familiar. Deep-seated maternal instinct. She had to protect them. She had to understand what was happening around her. Determined, she ventured outside, the chill biting against her skin, just as the morning fog rolled in, smothering everything in dampness. As she crossed the yard, the world felt shrouded in uncertainty, a frozen frame caught between safety and danger. She headed toward the playground, where laughter had recently turned to whispers as she approached. Remnants of the children's toy bikes lay scattered, tipped on their sides like fallen soldiers. The swings swayed eerily without a breeze, creaking as if someone unseen was sitting on them, swaying back and forth, awaiting their next giggle. A chill washed over her. Could it really be? She whispered to herself. Could it really be the spirit they say? Shivers danced along her spine as dark memories swirled in her mind like a grotesque carousel. Every missing child story echoed, reverberating off the trees, and for the first time, she considered that the folklore might be more than fanciful tales spun by old-timers. Then she saw a glint of something metallic under the sandbox, half buried. Kneeling down, heart pounding, she brushed away the dirt to reveal a rusted locket. It was engraved with the initials MK. Panic seized her. Could it belong to one of the missing children? Pressing her trembling fingers against its cold surface, she felt a surge of overwhelming dread. If she found this, what else might be hidden in the shadows? Suddenly, she heard a soft laugh, sweet yet haunting, echo from somewhere nearby. Goosebumps prickled her skin. She shot her head around, scanning the area, only to see an empty expanse where children once played. Was this another cruel trick? Or was someone watching her? An urge to flee surged through her, but her feet stayed rooted in the gravel. Not knowing absentee an option, she breathed to herself, gathering every ounce of courage as she marched back toward home. Locket clutched tightly in her palm. As she crossed the threshold, it struck her. The walls felt tighter. The air grew thicker. Something was watching from inside the house. She turned, poised to confront the darkness, but instead, her eyes widened in horror. There, standing in the doorway, was Mr. Jenkins, barely lit by the weak morning sun. His smile twisted into something unrecognizable. "You shouldn't go digging into things best left buried," he whispered, his voice low and oily. "You'll only uncover more than you bargained for." Sarah felt her heart drop as a cold certainty settled over her. The real dread was not just in what she discovered. It was who she still thought she could trust. Why was he here, just as she found the locket? What more had he seen? "Tell me the truth," she demanded, trembling. But Mr. Jenkins only stepped further into the light, eyes glimmering like polished knives, shadows dancing around him like loyal spirits. "You want the truth, Sarah? You might not be ready for what lies beneath." Her breath quickened, and the walls seemed to close in. And as he began to explain, a piercing scream tore through the air, a sound that would shatter the fragile day and unlock secrets better left undiscovered. What had started as a simple investigation was spiraling into something monumental. What had she truly stumbled across? The scream echoed, a sharp dagger that split the morning air. Sarah froze, heart thundering like a trapped bird. It came from the direction of the playground, that once innocent space now tainted by shadows and lost laughter. "What was that?" she whispered, dread pooling in her stomach. Mr. Jenkins didn't flinch. His gaze remained fixed and icy, as if he reveled in the terror that flickered across her face. "I wouldn't venture out if I were you," he said, his voice smooth but laden with menace. The darkness in his eyes deepened, swirling with a mix of malice and hidden truths. "Why? What's out there?" But she was already moving. The urge to protect her children roared louder than her fear. With a quick shove, she narrowly bypassed him, her heart racing as she sprinted toward the door, feeling his gaze bore into her back. Outside, the world had changed. The fog wrapped tighter around her like a shroud. It muffled her senses, and the playground loomed closer, a fortress of terror. She dashed forward, praying that whatever horror had clawed free from its slumber would not reach her kids first. She arrived breathless, scanning the once joyful area now steeped in an unsettling quiet. The swings hung still, the laughter faded. The playground equipment stood as sentinels of fear. Memories of her children frolicking in the sunlight twisted in her chest like a knife. Then she noticed the gathering of shadows at the far end of the playground. They moved, shapes were shifting, warping. Sarah's heart dropped. Were they children? Were they the ones who never came home? As she approached, a low hum filled the air, a dissonance that rattled her bones. The figures began to resolve into something more defined. Faces appeared within the gloom, eyes wide with lost innocence. They were familiar but wrong. Distorted copies of joy steeped in despair. "Help us!" one of the figures cried, the sound melding with the wind. The voice was high-pitched, innocent, but beneath it lay an undertone of desperation that sent chills spiraling through her body. "What do you want?" Sarah called out, fighting the disorientation or the compelling urge to flee. "Where are your parents?" The children began to chant, their voices wrapping around her like vines, pulling her closer. We played, we never went home." The energy shifted, felt alive. Fear clutched at her throat as she realized the truth in their words. These were the lost children, their spirits trapped, pleading for release, or revenge. Sarah couldn't tell which. Just then, a blinding flash cut through the fog, illuminating Mr. Jenkins' silhouette behind her. He hadn't followed. He stood at the threshold of her home, arms crossed, smirking. "They don't trust you, Sarah," he called, the warmth in his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You're just like the rest, always willing to dig into what doesn't concern you." Panic surged inside her. She turned back to the spectral children, their faces now twisted in eerie grins, transforming before her eyes into something grotesque. She stumbled back, desperate to escape the madness, but her heel caught on something, roots, a web of nightmares pulling her down. "Join us!" they shrieked as one. Her own children's faces flickered in her mind, and for a moment, she hesitated. What if she joined these lost souls in their fate? In that instance of weakness, a scream pierced her thoughts, a sharp reminder of her duty to protect. She couldn't abandon her own. She had to fight against the encroaching darkness. Gathering her resolve, she broke free from the grasping shadows. Turning on her heels, she sprinted back toward home, the mist swirling angrily behind her as the chants grew louder. But as she neared the door, it swung open with a creak, and there stood Mr. Jenkins, now a looming figure shadowed by intent. "Running away already?" he taunted, and she felt the weight of darkness press against her back. "You can't escape what's already claimed you." Sarah's heart raced, a frantic drum against the impending doom. She had faced the spirits of the lost, and now, she could feel the grips of fate, tightening around her, urging her to uncover deeper truths than she was prepared to confront. "Where are your kids, Sarah?" His smile was terrible, a ghastly mask hiding something even more sinister. What had she stumbled into? The dawn had barely begun, yet she felt the weight of night closing in ever tighter. Was it too late to save her children, or was the darkness already inside her? Sarah slammed the door shut behind her, the harsh sound echoing in the house like a gunshot. Her breath heaved, panic clawing at her throat as she leaned against the door, heart pounding so loudly she could hear it ringing in her ears. The shadows outside still danced in her vision, those children lost, pleading. What was happening? Why had she felt drawn to them? She shook her head, trying to clear the haunting cry from her mind. The warmth of the home felt cold and alien, the walls closing in like the fog outside. She had always thought of this house as a sanctuary, a place of safety, but now it felt like a cage. "Mommy?" A voice broke through her spiraling thoughts. Ashlyn stepped into the dimly lit living room, her small figure framed by the pale morning light creeping through the curtained windows. Sarah's heart twisted. Her daughter looked so innocent, with her tousled hair and wide, trusting eyes. Ashlyn's presence brought a surge of love and terror. "Sweetheart, stay close," Sarah managed to say, voice trembling. She rushed to Ashlyn, pulling her into a tight embrace, desperate to feel her warmth, her beating heart. "But what about Jace?" Ashlyn asked, eyes darting to the door where Mr. Jenkins had stood. "He said he'd come get us later." "What do you mean?" "He can't." Panic flared. "You stay here. Don't unlock this door for anyone. Understand?" Ashlyn nodded, but the concern etched across her young face sent more ice curling through Sarah's veins. She backed away, searching for Jace. The boy had always been one to wander, curiosity leading him into places he should never go. With a heavy heart, Sarah moved through the darkened rooms, her footsteps echoing on the wooden floors. Kitchen, bedroom, bathroom. No sign of him. Only silence, the kind that wraps around the mind and squeezes until it turns thoughts to terror. "Jace," she called, voice rising, but met with nothing but silence. Then she heard it, a soft whispering from the basement, like children laughing and playing but twisted, broken. Each giggle gripped her insides with fear. "Jace!" The word escaped her lips in a frantic plea. She dashed toward the basement door, each step heavy with doubt. What if those children were waiting for him? What if they'd already claimed him? The doorknob was cold, almost burning against her palm. She hesitated, breathing hard, the darkness below threatening to swallow her whole. What if he's in trouble? That rational thought pushed her into the darkness. She descended, each step echoing eerily through the stillness. The light above faded, swallowed by the creeping shadows that seeped through the cracks. "Jace!" The name fell from her lips like a prayer, as if uttering it might manifest his safety. The air turned thick, buzzing around her like a storm, the whispers drawing closer, growing louder. Suddenly, a chill rushed through her as she reached the bottom, eyes flaring to adjust to the gloom. The basement lay before her, cluttered but familiar. Old toys, shelves covered in dust, and an unsettling presence creeping across the walls. Then, she spotted him. Jace was sitting on the cold concrete floor, back turned, unmoving. Relief rushed through her, but it quickly turned to dread as she noticed the shadows swirling around him, whispering to him incessantly. "Jace!" Sarah reached for him, heart pounding fiercely as she closed the distance. "Come back to me, please." But as she touched his shoulder, his head turned slowly. His eyes were vacant, devoid of life, glimmering with something dark and otherworldly. "Mommy, they're nice, no." Panic erupted as her entire being screamed for him to wake up, to break free from whatever spell had claimed him. "They're not nice. They're lying." As her voice sliced through the silence, the whispers grew louder, rage building as they turned toward her. "Join us." Jace echoed their chant, his smile twisted and unnatural. A surge of horror gripped Sarah as she realized he was trapped. In that moment, she felt the familiar weight of darkness settling back over her. She could sense their pull, the temptations of joining a world that promised the lost another chance. But could she save her son? "Mommy?" he asked again, this time the innocence in his voice cutting through the veil of terror surrounding them. "Let us get out of here," she screamed, grabbing him. But as she turned, the basement door slammed shut with a deafening bang, shadows swirling with anger all around them. Sarah's breath hitched. Despair crushed down on her. She had come to protect him, yet they were both trapped in this nightmare. "Why won't you join us?" The shadows whispered, encircling her, wrapping her in their chilling embrace. Desperation surged within her as she pulled Jace closer, feeling the pull of the darkness deepening, threatening to claim him for good. Questions thundered in her mind. Was there a way to break free? Or was she destined to become one of the lost just like the children outside? And then, a final whisper came through familiar yet foreign, echoing of the past. "You can save him or you can join us, make your choice." In that suffocating moment, as shadows merged and whispered sweet promises of escape, the weight of her decision loomed ever larger. Would she sacrifice everything for Jace? Or would the darkness welcome her? The fog around her tightened, and a terrifying realization sunk in. What if the real monster was inside of her? The air thickened with an oppressive weight, pressing down on Sarah as she held Jace tightly in her arms. Shadows frothed and surged around them like a tempest, eager to consume any shred of light remaining in the room. "Mommy, I want to go home," his small voice cracked, innocence mingling with the darkness. "No, we're getting out." She forced the words through gritted teeth, but uncertainty gnawed at her resolve. Every flicker and rustle in the basement seemed to mock her desperation. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices overlapping, their rhythmic cadence forming a sinister chant. "Join us, stay with us, he is one of us, shut up." Sarah screamed into the void, her voice raw and strained. The shadows recoiled, momentarily startled, but their hunger returned with renewed vigor, drawing closer. Images flooded her mind, children with hollow eyes, faces twisted in laughter that turned to cries of despair. "What do you want from us?" When the only answer was silence, the shadows drew tightly around them, tightening like a noose. The chill penetrated her skin, setting off a tremor deep inside. "Jace, listen to me." She cupped his face, forcing him to look at her, but he stared blankly, eyes shimmering with the same shadowy hue that stole his spirit. "You have to fight it. They're lying. They want to take you away from me." "Mommy, I don't want to leave," he murmured, almost sweetly, but it was coated in a darkness that sent chills through her. The smile reappeared on his face, deeply unsettling, as if it belonged to someone else. The shadows recoiled when she gripped his arms, shaking him gently. "You are stronger than this. Remember our game? The one we always play." As if awakened by her words, Jace blinked rapidly, confusion obscuring his features. "The game," he whispered, the hint of awareness breaking through. "Yeah. The one where we stick together. You always find me." She pressed on, her heart racing with hope. "Find you?" The whispers fell back, sensing the shift, and their feverish tempo dimmed. Sarah sensed the barriers of magic weakening, a flicker of light breaking through the suffocating darkness. The air became electric as the shadows momentarily lost their grip around her son. But then, relentless, they surged forward once more. "You will join us, Sarah. The choice is not yours to make." Jace whimpered, terror clouding his expression, and the shadows snaked back, latching onto his small frame. They beguiled his spirit, tugging at the fragments of trust woven into his heart. "Please." Sarah's voice shattered, raw panic clawing at her as the emptiness in Jace's eyes returned. "Fight, Jace. Fight them. Remember the tree by the swing? You promised me you wouldn't forget." I can't," he stammered, the fight visibly draining from him, the shadows embracing him once again. "Jace, don't you dare give up." Sarah's voice was fierce, desperate. With a shuddering breath, she remembered something, an old family photo they cherished, of them standing beside the tree, laughing. "Imagine us there, you and me, swinging high. Nothing in this world can touch us." The memory took root, sparking something behind Jace's eyes. The darkness faltered, captivated by the sudden burst of brightness within the boy. But a sudden fury erupted from the shadows. "No!" they wailed, furious tendrils reaching for Sarah, coiling around her legs, pulling her downward with a grip of icy dread. "Hold on, Jace." She strained against their clutches, feeling them grip her heart like a vice. With every ounce of strength, she clung tighter to her son. "Remember me, Jace. Remember us." "Mommy!" The cry rang out, filled with pain, but in it was defiance. And then, as if responding to his mother's call, the room exploded in a flash of blinding white light, spilling hope over the encroaching chaos. Sarah's heart soared momentarily until she felt the darkness lunge. One last desperate attempt to reclaim both. A loud cracking sound echoed throughout the basement as the shadows split, revealing an escape. Something shifted. Could it be their chance? "Run!" she screamed, pulling Jace toward the fissure, as shadows wailed in anguish behind them. But just as they darted forward, a cold force gripped Sarah's ankle, pulling her down. "No!" she flailed, desperation clawing at her throat. "Mommy!" Jace reached out, horror etched on his face as the darkness surged around them, threatening to tear them apart. In that harrowing moment, everything hung in balance: the light, her son, her life. Time froze, fear curling around them like tendrils of smoke. "Choose!" The voice thundered, now echoing in the depths of her mind reminiscent of the whispers, taunting her. Will you save him, or will you surrender willingly? You cannot have both. And in that heartbeat, the crushing weight of eternity pressed down, leaving Sarah with a dreadful question echoing inside her soul. How much of herself was she truly willing to sacrifice for love? The chasm widened, and as her spirit shimmered on the brink, an ultimatum formed: could she save him before the light was gone forever? In that instant, shadows danced wildly, waiting for her answer. The light blazed brighter, swallowing the whispers in a shrill silence that felt like a gasp of fresh air. Sarah's heart raced as she felt the darkness waver, its icy grip slackening around her ankle. The fissure pulsed with warmth, drawing her and Jace toward it like a beacon. "Jace, come on," she shouted, trying to ignore the panic swelling in her chest. She kicked against the shadows, feeling their tendrils slip as she urged her son forward. She had to make it. They had to escape. "Mommy," Jace whimpered, frozen in place, eyes wide with terror. The darkness slithered closer, hungry. "Please, Jace, you have to run." That small spark of despair in him was terrifying. They had played games before, pretending monsters were lurking. But this was real. A fight for their very lives. The moment took on a surreal quality, like they were in a dream where nothing made sense. The shadows danced around them, howling in frustration, as if sensing their remaining chance of freedom. "I can't," Jace cried, his little hands gripping his head as if he could block out the suffocating dark. Sarah felt an ancient anger bubbling within her. "Yes, you can. Think of the swings. Think of home." Desperation coursed through her words, but they were her shield against the void. Her own childhood memories flickered through her mind, that glorious laughter she thought she'd never share again. And then, with an unexpected intimacy, the shadows shifted, their rage momentarily stilled by that fleeting image. Jace swayed, uncertainty coursing through him. "Mommy," he asked, teetering on the brink of despair. But there was something else. A glimmer of recognition. She pressed on. "Do you remember the time we went to the lake and saw all those ducks? The biggest one chased you, and you laughed so hard." The shadows recoiled, inching away from the light encompassing them. Jace's face shifted, confusion giving way to remembrance. I remember," he whispered, the light in his eyes flickering like a candle fighting the wind. "Good. Now fight. Fight with me." With one last desperate pull of resolve, Sarah lunged forward, teeth gritted in determination. The shadows were relentless, but light and darkness wrestled in a fierce tug-of-war. "Hold my hand, tight." She stretched her own trembling fingers toward him. Jace hesitated, fear flashing in his eyes. The darkness hissed around them, weaving whispers of his name, luring him back into despair. It was beautiful, sinister, inviting him. "Join us. Fight it, Jace. I'm right here." Just as he reached out, the shadows surged, wrapping around him like misty chains. They began to drag him back into despair, pulling at the very essence of his being. "Jace," Sarah howled, feeling the core of her heart tear. "You are not theirs. You are mine. You are light." With one fierce effort, she tore through the chaos. Jace's hand slipped into hers, and as their fingers locked, a surge of warmth exploded between them. "Run, Mommy," he urged, voice trembling but determined as the light surged brighter. They dashed toward the fissure, the dark anger roaring behind them. The shadows lashed out, snapping fiercely, trying to reclaim their prize. But the bond of love acted as a shield. The whispering turbulence around them began to soften against the raw, unyielding light pooling at their feet. Yet as they neared the escape, shadowy figures loomed above, monstrous and twisted, eyes glowing with malice. "You cannot escape. He is ours." Just as the light reached out, ready to wrap around them in a cocoon of safety, a piercing shriek erupted from the darkness. The voices grew furious, swirling in desperation as tendrils reaching for Sarah, for Jace, threatening to tear them apart. "Mommy!" With a final, fierce cry, Sarah squeezed Jace's hand tighter, the pressure igniting their shared determination. "Jump!" Both propelled forward, but then one split second later a shattering sensation ripped through the air. Did they make it? As the light began to dim, the shadows thrashed, and fear swelled anew. The echo of melancholic laughter filled the basement once again, weaving through the remnants of their escape. In the throes of the closing shadows, Sarah's grip tightened around Jace. In that moment, just before they crossed over into the light, a question burned in her mind. What awaited them on the other side of this darkness? And as the shadows screeched in defeat, one chilling truth gripped her heart. They weren't done yet. The blinding light pulsated, momentarily blurring Sarah's vision. She squeezed Jace's hand tighter, their bodies seeming to merge, a vital spark of life fighting against the encroaching shadows. Then, silence. The disorienting glow faded to a dull shimmer, and the ground beneath them felt strangely solid. They stood in a barren landscape, colors stripped away, as if they were trapped in a monochrome nightmare. The air was thick, suffocating and heavy. A chill crept through Sarah, leaving goosebumps on her skin. Something felt wrong. "Mommy?" Jace's voice trembled, a cracked whisper carried by the biting wind. His eyes darted around, searching for something familiar, anything to anchor him. "We're safe now, sweetheart," she said, though doubt gnawed at her heart. The echo of laughter still reverberated faintly, like a sinister reminder of the shadows they thought they'd escaped. As their surroundings sharpened into focus, they realized they weren't alone. In the distance, figures emerged, wispy silhouettes hovering, shifting like smoke caught in a breeze. They swayed rhythmically, their faces obscured but their gazes unmistakably fixated on Sarah and Jace. "Mommy!" Jace cried again, squeezing her hand. Panic splintered through her veins. What were these things? Were they remnants of the shadows, condemned souls trapped between the worlds of light and dark? "We need to go back," Sarah breathed, suddenly feeling the ground feel less steady beneath her. She started to back away, pulling Jace along with her. But with every step they took, the shadowy figures seemed to draw closer, their whispers coiling around her like chains. "Leave this place," one voice murmured, a hollow echo that rippled through the air. "Stay with us," another chimed, their intonation wrapping back upon itself like an eerie melody. "Get away," Sarah shouted, clutching Jace tighter. Her pulse quickened, anxiety spilling out in sharp gasps. She felt the shadows return. Not as tendrils, they were now a part of this place. "We're free," she insisted, struggling to believe her own words. But deep down, the darker part of her mind was screaming. Free from one prison, only to find another. Jace's wide eyes began filling with tears, the nagging despair creeping back in. "Mommy, I'm scared. Just hold on to me," she yelled, forcing her feet to move forward. Each step felt monumental, as if the shadows grabbed at her ankles, trying to drag them back into an abyss that threatened to swallow her whole. "Join us," the voices hummed in a chilling harmony, reverberating like echoes of long-forgotten dreams. With every syllable, they clawed at her sanity, each note dragging her deeper into despair. Breath hitching, she looked back at the figures. They were closer now, faces materializing in the distortion, worn and hollow-eyed, mouths twisted into ghoulish smiles, each one a flickering memory of what could have been. A mother, a child. Could they have been like her? Was the light she fought for worth this terror? Sudden realization crashed through her. The shadows hadn't just been elements of darkness. They were memories, victims of fear and regret, seeking companionship in their eternal torment. "Mommy!" Jace cried, pulling her back from the disturbing allure of the figures. "Please, let us go home." In that instant, Sarah felt clarity. Home wasn't just about a place. It was a feeling. It was love like the one she felt for Jace. With determination, she pushed her fear aside. "We're not staying. We don't belong to you." Drawing from that fierce love, she turned to flee, the figures howling in indignation as they surged forward. This time, they weren't chasing her, they were retreating, shadows peeling away, as she and Jace raced toward what felt like a shimmering portal in the distance. But just as they reached for it, a deafening roar shattered the air. The ground shook with thundering footsteps. Something was coming, something worse than shadows, surging from the void. "Mommy, what's that?" Jace pointed behind them, eyes wide with horror. Sarah's heart sank, the realization crashing over her like icy water. They had awakened something, an entity malicious and hungry, eager to reclaim its lost prey. "Run!" she screamed, pulling Jace along as terror clawed at her throat. But what shadowy being awaited them in this unforgiving world? The echo of laughter grew louder and more menacing, filling Sarah with dread. What had they truly escaped from? They ran, feet pounding against the cracked, barren ground. Sarah's breath came in ragged gasps, her lungs burning. Jace clung to her side, his little heart thumping wildly against his ribcage. Behind them, the roar grew louder, primal and unrelenting. It was a sound that resonated deep in her bones, sending waves of terror crashing over her. "Keep up, Jace," she urged, her voice strained as she pulled him forward. The shimmering portal flickered ahead, teasing them with hope, but just beyond it loomed the dark silhouette of their pursuer. A colossal figure, twisted and grotesque, began to take shape. Its skin was like ash, gray and ragged, pulling itself forward with an unnatural speed. Empty sockets glared, an abyss where eyes should have shimmered. It had no face, just a maw that gaped open, emitting a cacophony of sound that twisted Sarah's stomach. "Mommy, it's going to get us," Jace cried, his voice trembling as he glanced back. "Focus on me," she shouted back, her heart racing faster than her feet. Panic clawed within her, a visceral thing, wrapping around her throat. Would they be swallowed by the darkness again? With every step, the ground seemed to shift underneath them, urging them to stop, to turn. Shadows writhed like living things. The whispers returned, louder now, forming a symphony of despair. They crawled beneath her skin, settling deep in her mind, planting seeds of doubt. "Join us," they wove through her thoughts, intoxicating yet sickening, speaking a truth she dared not acknowledge. Sarah shook her head violently, forcing the voices away. They had to reach the light. Determination surged in her veins, a mother's love igniting a fire against the chilling darkness. "Almost there. Just a little further," she encouraged Jace, who was now crying openly, tears streaking down his cheeks. She could feel his hope draining, tugging at her heartstrings. Could she lead him back into the light? She didn't know. But as they approached the portal, the ground shifted grotesquely. A gaping chasm opened up, swallowing the shimmering light, and the darkness behind them surged forward. The figure, a monstrosity born of nightmares, was nearly upon them, its breath hot and fetid as it closed the gap. "No!" Sarah screamed, her voice fractured. She could see it clearly now, the despair etched onto its gaping visage, an echo of her own fears, a reflection of the shadow she so desperately fought against. "Jace, jump!" She didn't know what else to say. Desperation bled through her tone. With a leap, they hurled themselves toward the portal. Sarah reached for the light, praying it would hold them, praying it wouldn't betray them to the grasping darkness. But what remained of the light flickered uncertainly, and with a blinding flash, darkness swallowed them whole. Everything went silent, disorienting, except for the heart-stopping roar that echoed through the void. The air was thick with an oppressive weight, and then a chilling silence settled in. Sarah felt Jace slip from her grasp, panic igniting in her chest. "Jace!" she shouted, her voice echoing into the abyss. "Mommy!" came his small voice, distant yet painfully close. Sarah reached out, straining against the shadows that pressed in on her, clawing for a glimpse of him. Despair unfurled its shadowy fingers, wrapping around her, and she fought desperately to remain grounded in the moment. "Jace, I'm here," she called, her heart pounding like a war drum, fear and urgency mingling. But the silence answered, empty and cold. She felt an icy breeze sweep across her face, a whisper in the darkness. "You cannot escape, not now." A chill ran down her spine. What had they awakened? Where was her son? As shadows danced along the edges of her mind, dread washed over her. Something sinister was lurking in the depths, waiting, watching. And then, In the very inky darkness, a pair of burning eyes appeared, staring back at her. What horrors awaited them now? The eyes glowed brighter, piercing through the shadows that suffocated her. They seemed to absorb the very essence of the darkness, hungry and predatory. Every instinct in Sarah screamed to run, but in this void, movement was as elusive as light. "Mommy?" Jace's voice trembled, echoing faintly, threading through the heavy silence. Each syllable pulled at her heart. "Where are you?" "Right here," she shouted, straining to pinpoint where his voice was coming from. Panic surged within her, each moment dragging like a boulder, and dread coiled tighter around her. The weight of the air pressed against her chest, making it hard to breathe. Then, like a wicked whisper, the voice of the darkness returned. "You are alone. Sarah, your dreams of escape are dust in the wind," it laughed, a grotesque sound that twisted in the air, mocking and agonizing. "No, no," she cried, willing the shadows to release her, clenching her fists. "Jace, I'm coming." With determination, she stumbled forward, trying to move through the thick abyss, but it clawed and pulled her back. The whispers grew louder, swirling around her like a storm, each voice distinct and chilling. They spoke of her failures, her pain, the regrets that haunted her. "Join us," they crooned, the words slithering into her ears like venom. "You were never meant to survive. No one will come for you yet." The one voice she needed echoed louder than the rest. "Mommy!" She saw it then, a flicker of movement, flashes of color amidst the black, the outline of something small, something hopeful. "Jace!" With renewed vigor, Sarah pushed forward, the urge to reach her child propelling her through the weight of the darkness. Each footfall felt like torment, as if the shadows beneath were pulling at her. Yet she fought against them as she drew closer. The shadows peeled back like a curtain, revealing a small pocket of light, a dim reflection of that portal, flickering with life. Jace stood there, hands clasped tightly into fists, eyes wide and fearful. "Mommy!" he exclaimed, relief breaking through his voice. But even in that moment, she sensed the change. Everything that had enveloped them had morphed into something more sinister. "Jace, run to me," she urged, but a tendril of darkness shot out, coiling around her ankle, stopping her near the edge of the light. "Hurry, please." The shadows shivered, shifting, revealing faces, lost souls, their eyes hollow and lost, their mouths opening wide in sorrowful screams. Help us," they cried, a chorus of torment stretching through time. "No," Sarah shouted, fear wrapping around her like a vice. "Leave him alone. Let him go." But the shadows only twisted tighter, their grip stronger, pulling her deeper into the dark maw of despair. Jace stumbled backwards, fear washing over him. "Mommy, please, don't let it take you." With a surge of adrenaline, Sarah clawed at the darkness gripping her, desperation fueling her fight. "I won't let you take him. I refuse." As she ripped away from the shadow's grasp, the ground beneath her trembled violently. The light grew stronger, expanding, illuminating the faces of the damned that surrounded her. Their expressions twisted in agony, a reminder of what could befall her if she failed. "Mommy, I'm scared," Jace cried out. Gripping the edge of her sanity, Sarah reached for her son, her heart racing, but the shadows snapped at her heels, burning like ice. "Stay back," she shouted, releasing a pulse of energy, forcing the shadows back just enough to create a brief opening between her and Jace. "Jace, jump again. We can make it." The portal shimmered, a sliver of hope amidst the chaos. As they both launched into the light, a scream erupted from the depths, a scream that promised to follow them, a curse that would haunt their every step. But the portal flickered violently, threatening to close, and with it, the promise of freedom. Would they escape the grasp of the darkness, or would it consume them once more? With a final push, Sarah and Jace dove forward, the light swallowing them, but the echoes of malevolent voices pursued, filled with vengeful wrath. What awaited them on the other side? Sarah and Jace burst through the portal, tumbling into blinding light. For a moment, they were weightless, suspended in the warmth that wrapped around them like a protective cocoon. But as quickly as it began, the light shifted, swirling like a storm preparing to unleash its fury. With a thud, they landed on familiar ground, a soft patch of grass under their feet, sunlight spilling across their bodies. Jace gasped, his eyes wide as he took in the surroundings. They were back in their backyard, free from the suffocating darkness that had threatened to swallow them whole. But the air crackled with energy, a palpable reminder that their ordeal had not ended without a cost. "Mommy!" Jace spun around, relief and bewilderment etched on his face. "We're home?" "Why yes, sweetie. We're safe." Relief flooded Sarah, but beneath that joy lay a tremor of unease. She was home, yes, but how much of herself had she sacrificed in the darkness? They hugged tightly, the warmth dispelling the chill that still clung to her skin. But Sarah felt the weight behind her heart, a lingering essence of despair that haunted her. She glanced around, half expecting the shadows to rush from the edges of their yard. But nothing stirred. The neighborhood was serene, laughing children playing on the nearby street, suburban bliss wrapping the home in normalcy. Yet, in her gut, a whisper gnawed Mr. Jenkins, the laughter that masked threats, the shadows whispering promises of despair. It was all too much to ignore. "We need to make sure everyone is safe." Determined, she pulled Jace's hand, leading him toward the street. "Are there more of them, Mommy?" Jace asked, innocence tinging his voice with a hint of fear. "No, Jace, I promise. We'll keep everyone safe." The scene felt surreal as they approached the crowd. Families gathered, the air filled with laughter, yet something felt wrong. A heaviness lingered, like the calm before an impending storm. Residents waved, but their smiles appeared strained, as if they sensed something unfathomable just beneath the surface. As Sarah stepped closer to the playground, her heart raced. The swings swayed as if haunted by lingering echoes. Just then, a piercing scream rang out, carving sharply through the evening air. Her breath caught, panic surging as she turned to Jace. "Stay here," she commanded, but she could see the fear in his eyes. "Please, just stay close." She pushed through the gathering crowd, straining to find its source. Was it the shadows? Had the darkness followed them home? Voices swelled, frantic yet tinged with a familiar tone. "Jace! Jace!" One frantic mother, eyes wild, was searching through the throng, pushing toward the swings. "Here!" Jace's small voice called out from behind her, innocent and eager. He rushed forward, but Sarah for a split second felt ice grip around her heart. "No!" she gasped, lunging instinctively, grabbing Jace's arm just as something shuddered in the atmosphere, blocking their path. In an instant, the atmosphere shifted, the air crackled ominously. Shadows exploded from the park, warping into clawed hands and grotesque faces. "No!" Sarah shouted, panic overwhelming her. The group around her froze, horror spreading through the crowd as they witnessed the warped forms weaving through the laughter, snatching innocent spirits. "Run!" she yelled, adrenaline pushing her to the forefront. "We have to get everyone inside." Kids let out frightened cries, families scattering, but she steadied herself, rising above the chaos swirling around. With Jace by her side, her resolve hardened. "We know how to fight. Remember the love?" she shouted to the terrified parents, gathered as a unit as the townspeople formed a circle. She felt the warmth from their gathering, hope surging like a crown of light. The shadows lashed out, desperate to feed on despair. "Fight them with love," Sarah cried, the words echoing with truth. Love could protect them as it had protected her. She turned to Jace, holding him tightly. "Think of all our memories. The park days, the nights we spent under the stars. Those moments matter." As they stood together, the crowd joined in their laughter, rippling through the air like a wave, pushing against the shadows that thrashed in frustration. In that moment, the darkness shrank back. The silhouettes writhed, retreating as laughter cascaded over fear, uniting them all. Each chime of joy countered the whispers, pulling the shadows into disarray. "We are not afraid." The chant rose, echoing and filling the air with light. With the final surge of determination, Sarah screamed. Together, just as the shadows dissipated, An explosion of light erupted, pushing them back, freeing her community from the choking grip that had claimed them. In that blinding brilliance, something shifted. A promise echoed, the whisper of grateful voices thanking her, thanking them all for choosing love over despair. As the aftermath settled, a weight lifted from her chest. Jace looked up at her, eyes bright, laughter bubbling like a joyous river. Did we win? Yes, she breathed, pulling him closer. Together we did. Tears of relief pricked her eyes. They were free. Sarah glanced back at the playground, the shadows no longer haunting the edges of her mind. There would always be darkness, but where there was love, there was a chance. The world stretched before them, the sun casting the night away. As laughter flooded the streets, Sarah found hope descending like rays of light filling the void, leaving her heart full and ready to embrace every moment to come. And as she watched families gather and children play, she knew, for the rest of their days, they would fight together. Then, as if sensing her soulless shift, a gentle breeze waved through the air, soothing and warm, and a faint whisper carried on the wind, a reminder that they had bested the darkness, and together they would rise above. And as tranquility settled in, she vowed to cherish it, letting go of every ounce of fear that once gripped her heart. Finally, at home and safe, Sarah sighed deeply, ready to embrace a tomorrow under the sun's bright embrace. But in the stillness, a sudden chill grazed her skin, barely noticeable, yet unmistakable. A small question lingered in the back of her mind. Had the shadows truly vanished, or would they rise again with the next flicker of fear? If you loved this story and want to dive into more exclusive tales, make sure to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss out. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. I want to hear from you. Flood that comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this thrilling conclusion. You need to support the channel. Only true fans know how important it is.